Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining. We appreciate your time this afternoon, and the Yardi team and I look forward to a pretty high-level, brief presentation today, really just as an opportunity to connect with you and other agencies during a very trying time for a lot of us, but also a time that brings opportunity for good change. And so joining me today from the Yardi team is Gabrielle Van Horn. Gabrielle is the Director of Client Services for PHA here at Yardi, and she oversees client services operations really in the United States. So Gabrielle, thank you for joining, and Jeanette Porter from Yardi as well is joining us. Jeanette comes from the industry, has some housing authority experience, and is now an account executive with Yardi. May have worked with some of you in the past few years. So Jeanette, thank you for joining as well. And then my name is Jeff Bischoff. I'm the Senior Director of Sales focusing on PHA here at Yardi. I'm excited to join you all today and have some relevant discussions. All right, let's go ahead and jump in. I'm going to show the agenda here for a second. We're going to start with the power of technology and what that means for PHAs in today's world. Transition to some HUD notices that were released. Jeanette's going to cover that. And then working and training remotely. Gabrielle has some interesting discussion topics on working and training remotely. And then transition to working with participants, and then some online services that we encourage housing authorities really to look into implementing at their agencies. And then finally, we'll wrap up with a question and answer session. All right, let's go ahead and jump in. Again, we're going to start with Jeanette, transition to Gabrielle, and then I'll finish up at the end. Jeanette?
Great, thanks, Jeff. So the first slide here is just really for you guys, acknowledging that we have all really transitioned from being in the office together all the time to a more remote environment where we're separating from each other. We're either working from home, we're working in the office, but on a limited basis. So just acknowledging the fact that we've all made a huge transition in the past few months, and actually an awesome transition. I know at Yardi we did it all in 1 week from office to home. So I know a lot of the agencies as well really just picked up and moved a lot faster than they ever thought they could. So Yahoo for online. And really what that brings us to is the power of technology. And like, you know, Benjamin Franklin said, in this world, nothing can be said to be certain but death and taxes. And I'm going to have to add, now that we've moved past 1789, to the need for more affordable housing and an online working environment. That's where we are today in 2020. So I want to talk about the power of technology. You know, really, I think the one thing that we're all learning right now is that there's a huge need for change. The quicker that we're willing to accept that, the quicker that we're willing to actually embrace it, the better off we're going to be, and actually transitioning into an environment that makes so many more things possible. So we have to change. We're not going to do things the way we've always done them. And I think in public housing, from what I'm seeing, that's a very positive change. You guys are getting access to things that you weren't actually able to have access to before. And I wanted to really talk about some of the notices today. So some things have been going on, and we're trying to determine different things at the agencies, how CARES Act funding is going to be working. And so a few things to talk about is some of the fact sheets or some of the notices that we're getting. On July 16, they had an FAQ sheet come out looking at the definition of essential worker. I happened to read it because I just am so always into being on top of all this stuff. So pretty much 90% of the public housing staff are essential workers. There's very few people that are not. So they wanted to address that in the notice. The remote video inspections, they're looking to actually extend that right now. They were going to go back to doing in-person inspections, but as I've been listening to some people from HUD, they're looking to keep those remote. Technical upgrades, that's really where we hear a lot of that in our world. Not that we're not listening to everything else, but there's a huge move to get our agencies up and running in an online environment, helping our residents in an online environment, doing some e-signatures, things like that. That's all covered in the notice. And then I really am very excited for the notice that came out 3 days ago. And I'm going to go ahead and just say it's PIH 2020-24. It's about the CARES Act funds. Before this notice, we had an opportunity to utilize those funds until the end of this year. This notice actually extends the opportunity to use CARES Act funding until December 31st of 2021. That's for housing authorities, the HCV programs, the PBRA programs. They're all included in this notice, along with the reporting requirements. So it's very important. A lot of people have been worried about how they're going to be doing the reporting. That's addressed in this notice. Just where things are moving forward. Along with that discussion and bringing up this notice this week, legislation, they're working right now to move funds forward. So everybody's in the scramble right now to get internet online services going, but there's a cost to keep those going in the future. So right now legislation is going from this notice to the next environment, which will be how can we maintain all the services that we're putting in place right now. Working towards electronic signatures, they're now acceptable. And for teleworking, so changing from a paper file to an online file so that you're not taking paper files out of the office, because of course we all know we can't do that. I like that these notices are addressing the ability to use online security and functions to work with residents and their files and their information. And then the other notice was really on the 5.9 side, along with the tax credit, allowing for those electronic signatures and document management. Very happy to see this notice come through. The only thing that I would want to note is that on the tax credit programs, keep in mind they're ran locally. So when you're looking at these notices, like this one's H20-4, also know that on the tax credit program, you're going to want to check with your local regulatory committee, make sure that they've adopted it and they're accepting those e-signatures as well. So that's a lot of what we're seeing in the technology portion of the notices. There's a lot more that goes along with that, like how the funds are used and what you can use them for, not just for technology, but for helping your residents, helping your staff, getting more people telephones, laptops, using your operating and your capital funds in order to address some of the issues that we're seeing pop up. So that's kind of what the notices are about, and I think the most important information out there. Thank you guys. I'm going to go ahead and hand things off to Gabrielle so she could talk a little bit about what she's seeing in the change to working from home.
Hi. Hello, everybody. My name's Gabrielle, as Jeff said. I'm just going to share with you a little bit about the experiences that we had at Yardi and some of the things that we have observed our clients going through during COVID. First of all, I will say I have been so impressed by the resiliency of housing authorities during this time. It is incredible what people can accomplish when really pressed. Now, I guess I shouldn't be that surprised because working in this industry, often people have to really stretch to make things work. So for us at Yardi, even though we are a technology company, we were actually somewhat taken by surprise when COVID hit. And we did not have laptops for all of the people that we had at Yardi Systems. So typically new people are just given desktops and then they earn their laptops after they have demonstrated that they are knowledgeable in the software. So that was an immediate challenge for us. And what we decided to do was order a whole bunch of laptops, but also go ahead and just send people home with their desktops. We still had some interesting challenges along the way, but that actually turned out to be pretty good. It worked well. We did have a small number of essential workers also at Yardi, mostly people who work in the banking arm. And we all had to clear out of the building as quickly as possible to help ensure their safety. And so, as Jeanette said, everything happened very quickly. I would say another concern for a lot of us is, do we have secure communications? So obviously for us, our software is all in the cloud. And so that wasn't as challenging for us, I think, as it has been for some folks. Many people have had to use data warehousing, VPN, whatever it is. Just be sure that your communications are secure. As Jeanette was saying earlier, HUD is really frowning on people bringing home paper files. So as much as possible, we really need to be electronic these days. And of course, for me, I'm a supervisor. One of the things I was most concerned about is, do I have employees who need supervision? Can you hit the next there, Jeff? Yeah. So I'm a little bit embarrassed to say this, but when we all transitioned to home, I immediately became paranoid and anxious about the productivity of my team. So I don't know why I felt that way, but I think because I couldn't observe them and I'm a little bit old school, I had some anxiousness about whether or not people would really be productive. So I did all this analyzing. Should I be monitoring their computer activities? And what I realized was I actually have a lot of tools and reports already at hand that are still reliable gauges of how people are performing, and you probably do as well. So our recertification reports, our number of activities, and we of course have to weigh those things. So all recertifications are not created equally. If you have one where there's lots of family members, that is not the same thing as doing one where there's only one family member with one fixed source of income. So like agencies, I also just went back and calmed down after a while and realized the tools that I have are actually still useful whether I'm at home or not. And I imagine you're probably finding that too. I am not using extra tools to monitor my people. I'm just using the same tools I always did. I did not actually see, back for just a sec, Jeff. I like to chat too much probably, but I was just gonna note that I did not see a decrease in the quality or quantity of work. In fact, what I am finding is my people are even more productive now that they are home. They're just accomplishing more without the distractions of other people. Okay, now I'm ready for that next slide. Okay, so I do have, and I think most of us have had employees with challenges in this environment. These folks here are all actually people that work at Yardi Systems. Maybe not the dog on the far right, but everybody else is an employee there. And what I'll say is we've run into issues with environmentally challenged offices. So what I mean by that is in California, where we are, housing is at a premium, and we have a lot of people who have shared housing. Those people with desktops did not have a good way to connect well, in some cases, using wireless. And so we had challenges with that. I try to be flexible. Kids at home, that's definitely another thing. We want to be supportive of our employees who are suddenly doing all of the things. They're doing the work, they are being the teachers, they are being the childcare providers. Being flexible and reasonable while still holding people accountable, that seems to be the key that we have hit on. So I have to be okay with the fact that the morning might not be a good time for my parent employees to be having an important meeting with me. I might need to wait until a little bit later in the day when the kids are done. Just being a little bit flexible can make so much of a difference. We have had people certainly suffering from depression and anxiety. And what I'll say about that is at Yardi, we have provided access to a service for people to get counseling and things like that. And I'll talk a little bit more too about what we do to stay connected. But again, that being flexible is just so important to keeping people positive and moving forward. Okay. So communication is the key. One of the things we found early on was we were not meeting as often. Everybody was sort of frantically trying to get going, and people became anxious, depressed, frightened. Of course, some of that is just due to COVID and what's happening. We found that when we use webcams and have meetings and talk more often, people seem to just do better there. Now, in some cases, that might not be realistic. They might not have webcams, whatever the situation is, but trying to find ways to be connected. One of the things we did was we celebrate 5/8 and 5/9 day at Yardi. So May 8th and May 9th are special days. We had a party, 5/8 party, where we sent lunch to everybody on that day and just try to find opportunities to connect. Next. This is a special challenge for us. And I will say people, again, might be surprised to hear this because we work in a technology company, but we often seek people with skills that are not on the technical side. So we want people, of course, with housing experience, but also people who have project management experience or a background in customer service, working with people. And we sometimes devalue those technical skills. Well, unfortunately, when everyone has to work from home, it also means we need to hire and onboard everyone from home. So one of the things that we started doing is pre-screening people by having them take an Aspire class. Aspire is Yardi's online learning tool. So in order to get an interview, they would need to demonstrate that they were capable of attending that e-learning class and getting a certain percentage. Then we would go ahead and have a Zoom interview, much like we're here doing here. And we would ask them questions like, one of my favorite questions to ask is, can you change the name that is displaying under the picture? And have them walk me through that. So again, I'm not saying that technical skills are everything, but they're more important to us than perhaps they may have been in the past. I'll also say that we learned, or I learned, the importance of having not only documented my policies, just like you have an admin plan and ACOP, but procedures. When do I hand something off? Where should certain types of cases go? Who needs to be notified of what? I had not documented those things very well because we're usually all together and someone is manually, doing those things and you're learning by watching. So I will say I would encourage anybody who has not done this to take this opportunity to incorporate whatever your policies are with how you actually do those things in a training document now. This has really helped also with onboarding new people. Next. And engaging with participants. So first of all, I just want to tell you this very quick story because I thought it was funny. I was at a housing authority in Pennsylvania, and it was an elderly building, elderly and disabled building, and we're doing a training there. And I went out into the lobby, and this fellow, who was an older gentleman, asked me if I could help him with his phone. And so I am imagining that, oh, you know, maybe he needs to know how to take pictures or do something with email. Sure, I'd be happy to help you. No, he presents me with this very complex art/filtering app. I couldn't help him at all. He figured it out on his own. That really told me something though, which is there's a much wider adoption of technology than we might realize. Just because a generation likes to get letters or talk on the phone doesn't mean that they don't know how to use technology. Next there. So one of the things I think that, again, I just admire our customers so much and the creativity that they have used. So trying to identify what is it that people need the most. Of course they need housing, but those CARES funds can also be used for so many other things. And of course, we've had clients who have helped with transportation. Obviously, transportation is more limited. Public transportation is both more limited and more dangerous. Food, helping make sure that especially people who are unable to get out are getting food and medical care. And then we have had quite a few clients who have done technology training. So helping people learn tools like Zoom and how to do things on your phone, and also purchasing technology for the participants to help them. You know, technology is obviously something that might take a little bit to get people up to speed on, but again, you might be surprised by how well people already know and use things. Next. So one thing that I would say when talking or sending messages to your participants, I think it is so important, especially it's a very confusing time. Many people are unclear about what is happening. Obviously, we have a changing administration coming up. It's a scary time for people. And I think it's especially a scary time for participants who are not always able to follow all the ins and outs of what is happening at HUD. So where you have an opportunity, we recommend that you first provide reassurance. Everything's okay, you're good. You've still got your voucher, or you're still gonna be safe in your unit. Provide whatever information you want. Talk about the services, and then providing referrals for help. What we have seen is the customers who were the most successful in communicating with their participants did things like make a one-page flyer with simple language, talking about whatever it was that they wanted to say, and then they emailed those en masse to all of the participants. Obviously, that's not the only way to communicate. You can communicate via phone, mail, text, but we really like that. As clear and simple as possible, though. This is not the time for a lot of legalese. When you add that and people are already frightened, it seems to spur people to anxiety. So again, we just encourage you to try to be simple in your messaging.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Gabrielle. So the next topic we want to discuss with you for the next 4 or 5 minutes or so is really the notion of online services. And at the PHA, how can you leverage online services and tools to then better serve your applicants, your residents, your participants, maybe even your vendors and the landlords that you work with? So some of these online services may be better fit than others for your agency, but we just encourage you to consider some of these, and more specifically on this slide for applicants, residents, and participants, we've got online applications as a topic. That's a common tool offered in the industry. So would encourage you to offer online applications for more flexibility, even online certifications. So that might be intake for applicants or interim and research for your participants and residents. Just allowing them the flexibility to complete those online, maybe from their phone, and kind of negate the need to come into the office. We've seen a lot of agencies in the industry have some success in that arena. Maybe even online maintenance requests for your residents. So enabling them and empowering them to submit requests and issues with their unit to then notify your maintenance staff and just get faster service and more remote tools for them. And then finally, online payments as well. I think that just ties into the theme of flexibility and again, technology that allows residents, to do more in less time and to do more remotely. And so if we shift gears a little bit and focus on landlords and vendors, perhaps looking into online portals for your housing choice voucher landlords, allowing them to do things like upload documents, share forms or documents that are required by the agency, giving them real-time visibility into their profile. So again, kind of the notion of empowering them to manage their relationship with you remotely. And that even goes for things like electronic funds transfer configuration, streamlining that process with them. And then even a self-service portal for your more conventional vendors that you do business with. So rather than, maybe receiving calls or letters or visits from them, again, giving them tools at their fingertips to manage their entire relationship with you remotely. So this is an opportunity to look into these types of tools in the industry, not only to add efficiency for the agency and for the folks that you work with, but just to promote a safer work environment as well. And then finally, online services for your own PHA staff. How can you better serve your own staff? If you're offering online tools for your participants, your residents, for example, to complete certifications, maybe giving your staff dashboards or better online tools to manage that certification process. Again, adding efficiency while promoting a safe environment. And then when it comes to maintenance, perhaps giving your maintenance techs or your inspectors mobile devices and apps to perform the work that they need to perform. That's a common one we see with housing authorities in all over the industry. And then finally, with accounts payable, perhaps there's more burden on your accounts payable staff to complete the administrative tasks that they're used to completing. If they're having to work from home, I can see that being a huge challenge. So there are products in the industry, there are services in the industry to allow you to outsource some of those kind of administrative heavy and burdensome tasks when it comes to accounts payable. So again, just a kind of a simple encouragement to look into these services and these tools. They can really help your agency. Some may be a better fit than others, but there are folks out there willing and able to help, definitely help. And I think in terms of online services, that about covers it. Between Gabrielle, Jeanette, and I, we really appreciate your time. Hope that some of this was helpful. And at this point, we really want to just open it up to kind of a Q&A session. Any questions on what we've covered? Any feedback maybe about how your housing authority has handled some of these changes amidst COVID-19. We'd love to hear some feedback from you all. Not everybody at once now.
You can unmute yourself if you would like, so you don't gotta type in the chat if that's easier for you.